Now, Ukraine has activated our right to self-defense in accordance with international law. The combat spirit of Ukrainian military is high. We are fighting. We will be fighting. We, not only our brave and motivated military, but all Ukrainians. We are protecting our home, and we will not stop.
That is Oksana Marikova. She is the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States earlier today as well. So the perspective from here, obviously, is very, very different from the perspective there. We've been hearing reporters. I've been listening through the course of the day to some of the people there reporting on this, and you can imagine what a scary situation it must be now as Russian troops continue to advance. Darren Snow, our guest who was on the line, is from Vancouver. Darren, you moved to Kyiv, or I'll say Kyiv, 8 years ago. I'm just wondering, when you first heard about this and the threat of the invasion was there, how did you react?
Well, I don't know. It was kind of always on there. It's been going on for almost 8 years. It's just sometimes it's a little stronger, sometimes it's not. But this has been pushed, I think. It's been 3 or 4 months. We were kind of thinking about this happening.
And did you have the sense that, I mean, a lot of people think this was just going to be a push, then he would back down, Putin. Did you think this was going to go all the way?
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to do this. I thought he was just going to pressure people, and I guess it's kind of like the West, didn't bite and kind of made him call his bluff, and this is what he did.
Now, Darren, you live in Kyiv right now. Can you describe a little bit to us what it feels like to be there right now, what you're hearing, what you're seeing?
Well, I just heard some explosions right now in the far distance. I am about 10 kilometers from the center, kind of northwest of the center, and like maybe Maidan area. So it's pretty safe. There's no military installations here, but I did hear what I thought was a cruise missile traveling over the apartment at about 6 in the morning.
Oh my goodness! And I understand you have two children. I guess that's why you're not leaving.
Yeah, I have 2 younger children. I have an older child from Canada, and he's here right now with me, 25-year-old child.
So you're describing a situation where you feel safe because you're not in the heart of this, but at some point, as they get closer and closer, assuming they do, and we keep seeing reports that the Russians are getting closer to Kyiv, do you have an exit plan? Are you eventually thinking of leaving, or what are you going to do?
Well, it's kind of tough to go right now because all the trains are closed or are kind of booked, and there was no fuel for cars this afternoon, and I think that's the situation right now. You can't buy fuel. So you're kind of stuck right now, see what happens. There's a bomb shelter kind of underneath this apartment. It should be okay.
Darren,
wow.
You sound surprisingly calm.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you're kind of, I'm going to be careful how I word this, but are you sort of taken aback? Are you sort of in shock and not grasping the reality of this?
Well, you are kind of in shock that this all happened, right? And it's happened with such precision, and they seem to know what they're doing. But, my son and I went out for coffee this afternoon, and, walking through the park, it was quite empty. And even though there were some coffee shops open, it seemed a little funny, right, just walking on the street.
So when you say funny, you mean you're not seeing any people out there? Are you assuming most people are either in bomb shelters or have left or are hiding? What are you assuming?
No, the roads were fairly full, right? So one thing that was funny is I live on a pretty major thoroughway, and in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, it's usually pretty busy going into the center, but it was the exact opposite this morning going the other way.
Yeah, we've heard that those roads have been absolutely jammed with people fleeing the area. Do you know people who have fled?
Yeah, some people have fled a week or even 2 weeks ago, right, thought this was imminent. But, saw a lot of people left today, right, and were trying to leave today. So I know people in Dnipro, people from all over Ukraine. Another friend of mine, software and engineer in Dnipro, lived 2 kilometers from, I think it was a rocket factory, some kind of missile factory or something. Maybe it was a defunct missile factory, but they wiped that out. And he was only 2 kilometers, so there was a lot, right? Another friend of mine who's left this afternoon was living kind of almost on the river, but north part of the city. and there must be some kind of military installation because she heard 12 explosions at about 6 in the morning, phoned me at about that time. And other people, different areas, heard a lot.
So I'm wondering if we get to the point, I'm going to try to sort of fast forward this into what may end up happening, which is what some people think. Say the Russians take over, they overthrow the government, they take over Ukraine. What are you going to do then? Will you simply come back to Canada? What are your thoughts? Have you thought that actually that far along?
Well, I don't know. It's tough. I don't know. I definitely don't want that to happen, but if it does happen, there's quite some heavy Russian culture in Ukraine as it is. So I had somebody else tell me, oh, well, it might happen in 2 or 3 days. And, we're just little people, we can't do anything about it. And if it happens, it happens. It's not going to be any different for us.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Okay.
I don't want that to happen. I think that watching Ukraine change in the last 8 years was quite interesting. Because when I was first here 8 years ago, it was quite more of a Russian culture, and I've seen it move to the east or to the west. So it's a little bit more of a Western culture in especially the last 2 years.
So when you say move to the west, how do you mean exactly culture-wise? What's been changing
just culturally? There? Well, just their attitudes, right? A little bit more, maybe a little more liberal. I don't know, right? Not so quite Soviet.
But
right?
But you feel it. You can tell that. You've been able to tell that.
Yeah, just the younger people. So, you get people that are 20 years old. Well, they've not grown up in the Soviet Union.
Right.
When I was here 8 years ago, there was a vast majority of the people that I'd be talking to were all people that kind of came out of the Soviet Union almost. So,
sounds like
had some flavor of the Soviet Union. They knew what was going on with the Soviet Union. And it's a different culture, so now it's quite different.
It sounds like the democracy is prevailing or was prevailing. Is there a sense, Darren, that the West is giving the necessary support to Ukraine?
Well, from how well the Russian army is doing today, it doesn't seem they've given them enough support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We heard the Prime Minister just a little earlier this afternoon talk about the fact that he's, making available resources for Ukrainian Canadians who want, even for immigrants or refugees who might want to leave. But that's not something at the back of your mind. You're giving me the impression, Darren, that you're staying no matter what.
Oh, there was an old adage here. Somebody told me this a few years ago. It said, Ukraine's going to be split up from one side of the Dnieper River is going to go to Ukraine, the other half's going to go to Russia, and Kyiv will burn. So if Kyiv starts burning, well, then I got to go.
Okay.
Now, again, I understand you've got 2 young children there. Your older son is there with you as well, and your ex-wife is Ukrainian. We heard today that Canada will be looking to expedite allowing Ukrainians to come. Would you consider bringing your family here?
Well, yeah. If things got bad, of course, it's hard to say. I can't see, even what Putin says. The culture is kind of close. The culture is very close. So, Ukrainians and Russians are very close. Not like Latvians, Lithuanians, or Poles. There's not that closeness, right? Maybe Serbians have that closeness to them. But Ukrainians are very close to Russians, right? Maybe a little more kind. They speak a little softer. Something like that.
Okay.
Well, we wish you well.
Absolutely. Stay safe as best you can. We wish you, of course, you and your family, get through this and hopefully be able to talk once this is all over and see if you're okay then. So thanks so much for your time, Darren. Very much appreciated today. You be real careful and be safe.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you,
Darren Snow, former Canadian, now living in Kyiv.